Clara and her teenage daughter Benny sit together one quiet evening, discussing the growing tension in Clara's marriage. The conversation takes a serious turn when Clara gently reveals that her husband, Benny's father, has been secretly working at a construction site for months. Benny is stunned by the news. She had always assumed her father held a different kind of job, and the revelation leaves her both confused and hurt. What frustrates her most is not the nature of his work, but the secrecy and the anger he's been bringing home. Benny doesn't hold back her emotions. She criticizes her father's behavior, calling it unfair and emotionally distant. To her, it feels like he's been taking out his frustrations on the family instead of being honest about his struggles. As her disappointment grows, she begins to question the very foundation of marriage, wondering aloud what it's even worth if it leads to so much resentment and pain. Clara listens patiently, her face a mixture of sadness and understanding. She explains that while things have been difficult lately, every marriage faces challenges. No relationship is perfect. She tells Benny that marriage is more than just love and happiness. It's a lifelong commitment built on effort, understanding, forgiveness, and patience. Clara acknowledges her husband's flaws but also reminds Benny that there are layers to a person's actions, often shaped by pressure, pride, or fear of vulnerability. She gently reminds her daughter that, while it's natural to feel upset, it's not her place to pass judgment or get involved in matters between husband and wife. Some things, Clara says softly, are more complicated than they seem from the outside. She reassures Benny that, despite the current struggles, she and her husband are committed to working things through together. After a long pause and some quiet reflection, Benny nods. Though still hurt and confused, she agrees to step back and let her parents handle their issues, trusting that her mother knows what she's doing. While Benny is sitting in the living room, her father, Jonathan, confronts her with simmering anger about her mother Clara's whereabouts. He accuses Clara of being unfaithful, throwing out baseless claims that she's cheating on him. The accusations quickly escalate in intensity and cruelty, with Jonathan going so far as to call Clara a prostitute, without a shred of evidence. Benny, stunned and furious, fiercely defends her mother, refusing to let the slander go unchallenged. The argument spirals out of control. Jonathan, already emotionally volatile, turns his rage toward Benny. His words become increasingly cruel as he lashes out, insulting her and threatening her in a way that frightens and rattles her. When Benny finally confronts him, pointing out that he's simply projecting his own insecurities and frustrations, especially over recently losing his job, onto them, Jonathan snaps. In a moment of blind rage, he slaps her. Just then, Clara returns home to find a tense and emotionally charged atmosphere. She immediately senses that something is wrong. When Benny, still shaken, tells her what happened, Jonathan becomes defensive, attempting to justify his behavior and deflect blame. But Clara doesn't back down. She confronts him head-on, her voice weary but firm, expressing how exhausted she is by the relentless tension and hostility in their home. She pleads with him to stop lashing out at their daughter and to start treating her with kindness and respect. Jonathan, however, turns the blame back onto Clara, accusing her of reconnecting with her ex Clara. No longer willing to entertain the accusations, responds with a cold resignation, saying that if that's truly what he believes, then so be it. She begs him to stop poisoning their home with his paranoia and anger. Leaving him speechless and shaken, she turns away and walks upstairs, leaving Jonathan to stand alone in the heavy silence that follows. Clara arranges a quiet meeting with Hanks to ask for his help, confiding in him about the financial hardships she's facing at home ever since her husband, Jonathan, lost his job. She speaks candidly and with a sense of urgency, explaining that her request isn't just coming from the position of a concerned wife, but also from the perspective of a mother trying to protect her child and an independent woman determined to take control of her circumstances. Although Clara is quick to clarify that Jonathan has never been abusive and that she still loves him deeply, she doesn't shy away from the truth. Things are incredibly difficult. They're falling behind on rent, struggling to pay household bills, and can't keep up with school fees for the kids. The weight of it all is becoming unbearable. With quiet determination, Clara tells Hanks about her dream of starting a small catering business, something she's been thinking about for a long time. She believes it's the best way forward, not just to help her family get back on their feet, but to regain a sense of dignity and purpose. She asks Hanks for a loan to help her open a modest restaurant, hoping it can be a fresh start. Moved by her courage and vulnerability, Hanks listens intently. Without hesitation, he tells her that he's willing to give her the money, no strings attached. He says he doesn't want her to worry about repaying it, insisting that his only wish is for her to find happiness again and for her home to be a place of peace and stability. He admits he feels a certain guilt, perhaps for not being there sooner, and says he's ready to do whatever it takes to help ease the burden she's carrying. But Clara is firm. She appreciates his generosity, but she doesn't want charity. She insists that the money must be treated as a loan, not a handout, because this is about rebuilding her life with dignity on her own terms. Inspirational message. Even in the midst of chaos, courage can rise. Clara's story reminds us that love is not blind. It's patient, resilient, and often tested in silence. When the walls of her home trembled under the weight of secrecy, anger, and fear, she didn't collapse. She listened, she stood firm, and when the time came, she chose not to fight fire with fire, but to build something new with grace and resolve. Sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is not endure but transform. Clara didn't wait to be rescued. She asked for help, not as a victim, but as a woman determined to protect her child, reclaim her peace, and walk a path of purpose with dignity. She proved that rebuilding doesn't mean forgetting love. It means refusing to lose yourself to it. Let her journey be a reminder. You are not powerless. Even when everything feels out of control, you still have the power to choose who you will become in the storm. You can ask for help without shame. You can begin again without apology. And you can rise not because life is fair, but because you are fierce.